Ooh. Hi, everybody. In the past few years, we've seen an emergence of a whole new industry called social games as a result of the boom of social networks. These two form quite a phenomenon together because in a relatively short time, over a few years, they've managed to take 1/3 of this pie chart, which represents percentage of time people spent online doing something. Now, people spending so much time created a lot of buzz, so everybody's talking about Facebook, social, and social games, and it's a good place to be because of the following reasons. If you want to start a company in this space, you're going to have all VCs, trust me, hunting you and wanting to invest in your company. Why? Because working in social games and building social games enables you to actually iterate through design, measure a lot of stuff, measure all the feedback, improve your product over time, over iterations, and finally get a product that is very engaging, high quality, with great metrics that actually generates a lot of revenue and makes you build a successful business around it. Next 20 minutes, we're going to talk about social game design or principles on how to build a successful social game. I've been to many conferences lately, and I've never heard a single session on social game design. So this is going to be my humble contribution to the community, trying to tell you some things that I've learned along the way. Please, if you find some things too basic, don't mind me, because I've tried to cover a really wide audience, from people that have never been developing a game to experienced game designers that are maybe switching to social games soon. So first of all, if you want to build a successful social game, you need to build a successful game. So all the social voodoo won't mean much if your game as a game sucks. So what is a game? There's many definitions, from one-liners to several pages long. My favorite one is that game is an interactive system that generates feeling of having fun by the player. Why an interactive system? Because user sends input to the system using mouse, keyboard, joystick, whatever. The game gets that input, processes it, and gives feedback back to the user. An example would be if you're playing a fighter plane simulation, you pull the stick up, you press the trigger, your plane pitches and shoots cannon fire into the opponent. Now, this process of creating fun for the player, that's actually a biomechanical process, which is taking place in our brains. And fortunately for game designers, there are ways how you can trigger this process to start. You can actually do some things and make people feel entertained and having fun while playing games. We'll refer to this as fun mechanics. And fun mechanics can be split into three main categories. First one would be challenge, or a problem that we put in front of the user to solve while playing game. Second one would be progress, which is actually the fact that user or player is improving over time, getting more skillful, and feeling good about it. And the third category is context, which is essentially everything else part of the game which is not included in these two categories of challenge and progress. Simply said, game is a set of problems we place in front of the user for him to solve and continue forward new challenges and problems that are probably going to be a bit tougher and again to solve them. So when you hear this definition where game is a set of problems you solve and then you continue towards new problems, you could actually argue that school is a game and that school is fun because games are fun. However, that's not the case, and schools usually suck in this area because the important thing about challenges and problems is to have a good balance about it and to avoid being repetitive. So by good balance, what I mean is that the player, the user, has his own perception of the problem. So you need to make sure that he sees the problem as something he can solve. And on the other hand, if he finds it too easy, it's going to be boring. If he finds it too challenging, it's going to be frustrating, and he's not going to want to play your game. Repetitiveness is a fun killer in all areas of life, not only games. Also, unfortunately, repetitiveness is a very common and easy practice to place in computer games. However, users are, to a certain extent, tolerant to repetitiveness if you provide them some other things, which we'll discuss later as a substitution. And we also come to feedback, which was sort of neglected in the early days of computer games. But over time, it became more and more important, where you need to try to give as much of a nicely placed and a positive feedback to the user while he's playing the game. A very good example from the newest age of gaming would be Guitar Hero, where actually, while you're playing the guitar, you've got this progress bar showing you how good are you playing at the moment. And that one actually makes you focus. If you see you're going down, you're going to try harder and focus more to get it back up in order not to lose on that song. So progress is, by definition, basically the fact that over time, player gets more skillful in playing that game, and he's able to solve more difficult problems than before, like in life. And the most important thing about progress is basically difficulty. So you need to make sure, as I said, to set the difficulty of the problem to the level the player can handle and feel good about it when solving it. If the main idea would be, and if you can do it, you're an excellent game designer and you're going to do really well, is to actually create a game that in the beginning users find easy to start with and yet very appealing to play, so they play it very intensively. And then what you want to do is to keep them doing the same thing forever. However, it's not an easy thing to do, and if there was a graph to show it, it would be this one, where a green bar represents the progress of the user. So in the beginning, it's a bit steep as he learns faster, and then as the game unfolds, it gets a bit slower in the problem difficulty. What you would like to do in order to have the user play the game as long as possible or forever is to try to push this part of the curve where it is not that much steep as distant in time as it can be done. Context, as we said, is everything that is not part of game loop or gameplay. So it's all the other things. Good examples of context could be graphics and sound. So basically, our senses receive input, in this case visual and sound, and transport these impulses to your brain. And the stronger the impulses are, more capable the game is going to be to actually bring the user into it, to make him feel like he is a part of the game. This is also why, actually, until recently, these two, graphics and sound, were one of the most important characteristics of the game. And now, as the industry evolved to a situation where everybody's making pretty much super high quality graphics, it's losing on the importance. The other thing that's extremely important as a context is the story of the game. So what's actually going on? So imagine you're playing a first-person shooter. You have your gun. And then the only thing that's necessary to actually get you started and really motivate you to play is one sentence, which says, "The outlaws have taken school kids hostages." And then you're going to get the gun and go and fight those badass outlaws. Basically, you can easily motivate any person to click the mouse for an infinite period of time if you give him a story of fighting for freedom, justice, revenge, and so on. One of the things that's become a really big seller of games recently is setting. Setting is, as it says, where do you put the game into? So, for example, you can be quite sure that if you build a Star Wars game, it's going to have a lot of fans, and it's going to have a context around it that you cannot not actually replace by something else, because it's Star Wars. Similar effect is recently being given by social, which is something we're going to focus on a bit later. Now, there's many teams that are more than 100 people, even few hundred people, that spend few years working on a game, and yet they don't manage to really score on all three categories of balancing the challenge and the progress and the context. It's a very hard thing to do, but fortunately, like when we're playing games, there are also cheats in game design. So one cheat would be that if you manage to provide a nice, well-placed feedback to the user and give him a reason why he should fight those badass outlaws, or give him a reason to play the game, then actually he might be more willing to solve stupid problems. Another thing you can do is that sometimes you won't be able to scale that progress very nicely, but you can fake the progress actually. Why? Because progress is something that user perceives as a difficulty of the problem he solves. So you can cheat a bit by giving him achievements, rewards, higher levels, or whatever, and make him feel like he's actually making progress even if he's not so much. Another thing that is a huge game seller, as mentioned before, is setting and social. I mean, you can be quite sure that if you can spend several $100,000 to build a Harry Potter game, and it really doesn't matter what you're going to build, you're definitely going to sell enough copies to actually make money. And now we come to the main topic of the session, which is social game design. So before we start improving our game to create it social and successful, we need to figure out what are the things we need to measure, and then we'll see how to improve them. So one of the things you'll definitely want to measure is user engagement. That means how many people are playing your game every day, every month. What's the stickiness of the game, represented by the ratio of these two? You're going to measure how much time people spend playing your game. How much time do they spend doing some certain things in your game? The other thing you'd like to measure is the growth of your product, of your game. That means knowing at all times how many new users have you got by hour, by day, by month. Knowing in case you are actually investing money in user acquisition, how much does it cost you to bring a user? How much does it cost you to bring a user that's going to spend some money in your game, whether it all makes sense, and so on. And the last thing, and maybe even the most important, in some cases, is actually to measure how well does the game monetize. So how many people are actually willing to spend money versus those that are not. And if they are spending money, what are they spending money for, and so on. On all these metrics, you should also apply the demographics filter. So you should know for all these categories, all the stats by country, region, language, age, gender, and so on. Now, why do we need all this? Because if you can actually measure all these things, then you can, through iterative design, actually know how did the changes you've done to the game, or the new features you've launched, or some economy tweaks you've done, how do they influence the overall metrics? And that's really good, because it helps you, over time, build an amazing product and maximize its potential, which is something that was not really the case with the industry of games so far, with DVDs and CDs and console games, for consoles and PCs and so on, where the team would develop a game and then simply publish it to the market, hoping for the best, without the possibility of providing updates too often. So now that we know what to measure, let's see how we can actually improve all these things. Because fortunately, there are relatively straightforward ways you can improve your game to be much better on all those metrics than you've initially had than the initial results you had. So one of the ways you can increase engagement in your games, especially if they're targeting female population, is spread cuteness all over the world. So what you need to do is make sure your game or posts from your game are all over social channels, Facebook wall, and so on. If there's like a message, a direct message to the user with a cute cat saying, "Feed me, I'm hungry," or something else, people fall for it easily, especially female part. And if you ever have a daughter, be sure she's gonna come to your house one day with a kitten she found on the street. Unless you're from Bucharest, kitten has no chance on the street here. So the thing is that once the user, or in this case probably girl, sees this hungry kitten, she's gonna click on feed the kitten, enter the game, and actually engage with your product. Another thing you could do is make sure that people need to get back to your game at some exact time of the day, because if they don't, they're gonna miss a great opportunity for them. Now I'm gonna give you one example from our game, from Top 11, where all the matches that are being played are played at some certain time of the day. So if you want to be with your team, help them win by doing substitutions or changing the tactics as the match goes, you need to enter the game at the exact time and follow the match. And we've done something similar to player purchase, where if you want to sign a very nice goalkeeper, you need to come back at certain time of the day and actually sign the contract. One more trick you can do is to reward users for loyalty. So whenever they log in or do some action, you give them something. For example, let's say you log in to a game today, and then you get an apple tree. You log in tomorrow, you get one more apple tree. You log in for the third consecutive day, and you get an apple tree plus a cow or whatever. So it's not, obviously it's not an example from what we do, but it serves the purpose. All right, so these were the tricks how you can actually make people come more frequently to your game and spend maybe more time doing that. Social aspect was not really leveraged to its full potential prior to social networks and social graphs and essentially social games. But now that we've got a situation where people not only in different rooms, but different cities, countries, continents, can actually play the same game at the same time, you should really make sure to push this social graph into your game design. So one example is if you've got friends playing the same game at the same time, you can build really nice crew dynamics features, which will, I'll give some examples, maybe it's easier. So you could have a situation where your friend is helping you out by harvesting your crops or feeding your kitten or whatever. Also, you could have a situation where you're a mayor of one city and your friend is a mayor of another city, and you can actually send your citizens to his summer resort, which will actually bring more happiness to your city. Or you can do the opposite thing. He can send his citizens to your summer resort, and that's going to boost your economy in your city. You could hire friends as some key, key employees for your virtual economy or whatever. So humans are basically, this is important because humans are essentially here now as a species because teamwork and collaboration is in our genes. We're used to working together and solving problems together and helping each other. And you should make sure to try to get that element into a social game. We're also very competitive, and we like to show off. which is why it's not a bad idea to actually provide friends with an opportunity to compete with each other. What we've done in Top 11 is that we usually place friends together in competitions so that their clubs are actually playing matches versus each other, and it brings a really one different level of fun to the game compared to our competitors. Now, gifting is something that is, I believe, present in all cultures or all over the world. So everybody likes to receive a gift and feel special and loved. Also, we don't really like when we feel that we owe something to somebody. So if you get a gift, you're going to make sure that when the time is right, you pay back by giving a gift to that person that was so nice with you. And this has migrated to social games very nicely. So what you can do is create meaningful gifts that actually have some purpose in the game. Maybe some horse stable effect where the user is collecting some items in order to progress or do something. And then these items you present as gifts. So people actually need to invite their friends and gift them, because the more friends they gift and the more friends they bring to the game, higher the chances they will be receiving gifts, and these gifts are going to help them substantially in progressing through the game. This is great, not only for the fun effect, but it's actually bringing you a lot of users at zero cost, which is definitely something you would appreciate a lot. Okay, so it's very nice to build engaging, compelling games for the users, and you want to do that. And essentially, you want to build those games and get as many users as possible for no money or less money possible. And on the end of the day, you need to live off this business in order to be able to build these nice games. So you need to make sure that you actually make some money out of them. And social games are, by default, free. So it's all about free. People can log in, register, play for free forever. On the other hand, Zynga, which is the flagship of this industry, is worth around $15 billion. So how come something that is free is worth $15 billion? Well, because it's not actually free. So what you would like to do is to build a nice, engaging, compelling experience that users are going to love so much that eventually they're going to start spending real money in the game. Tricks for doing that would be selling some in-game boosts that can either speed up things or improve some assets in the game. One example from Top 11 is that to build a stadium, it usually takes you 15 to 20 days, like real life days, 3 weeks. And if you spend just a tiny little bit amount of money, you can actually build it much faster. Another way of making money through social games is by limiting the number or amount of actions users can perform in a certain period of time. This is usually done through energy bars, but there are other ways. And essentially, user can do some things, and then the game says, okay, now you need to come back in half an hour or whatever, and continue. Or if you don't want to wait and you want to continue performing that action right now and continue progressing in the game that you like so much, then you can actually spend some small amount of money. And this is actually, all of these are great, and they generate a small amount of money times millions of users, which is a nice revenue for a company to continue growing and improving its products. However, there is one thing you should never neglect, and that is a small group of people that are willing to spend enormous amounts of money on your game. So there's going to be people that will spend all they can on boosts and energy bars and whatever, and simply you need to make sure you provide them with more opportunity to spend money. Like fashion industry, where we all get our clothes in normal shops, but there are also some other people that wear seal fur or whatever, because they don't find cotton, it's too plain. So what you can do is build something similar as in real economies and shopping system, which is limited offer items. It's something that nobody else in the world has, or that is very limited on stock, and then you sell that special item for ridiculous amount of money. Depending on the game, but there have been examples where people have spent So individuals, like one person would spend from several thousand euros on some limited item to hundreds of thousands of euros, believe it or not. So this is a market segment that you also want to try to capitalize on. And my time is up in 2-1 now. So that would be it for now. I really hope that those of you that are interested in game design have heard at least something new, maybe learned something new, and that you will be able to actually use that knowledge in your either existing games or the ones under development, or maybe those that are yet to be designed. So thank you very much, and it's time for questions.
And they are hiring too. Thanks, Branko.
My contact details were also listed there, so but it's gone. But anyways, if anybody wants to talk with me about whatever, social game design or something else, you can either catch me in the conference or shoot me an email, and I'll be happy to respond.
Okay. Questions?
To these games, you actually create dependence. So do you feel any remorse for this, for keeping people in front of their computers instead of letting them doing something more meaningful with their lives? And are there any possibilities to use this gamification to actually incentivize people to do nice things in the real world?
So I completely disagree. Games are by default, as the definition says, it's an interactive system that generates the feeling of having fun for the user. Now, I mean, if you think having fun is waste of time, that's okay. It's a fair thinking. I see it as fun. So I personally not only play games, I go and watch live basketball, go Partizan Belgrade. We'll kick Real Madrid tonight. So and I go there because it generates feeling fun for me. So that's my answer. I mean, I disagree, so I couldn't say anything else. And on the other hand, of creating games that are giving the social benefit, or is that the question, right? I think that already exists, and I'm a strong supporter of that. I hope that's going to work. I'll give you an example that I'm not that all bad. So as my master's thesis, the guys that founded the company with me, we've actually developed a game for mentally challenged kids to help them learn the rules of traffic safety and so on. So there is games can definitely help in those segments as well, and I'm actually one of the guys that are financing and doing it as well, besides making people addicted to games.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you know any site or mechanism which employs these principles you've described and adding offline elements or elements which are not standard in your game, like expressed by graphic and so on?
I'm not sure I've understood the question. Can you?
I mean, if there's a sort of game that has been invented which employs these methods and tricks you've shown us here, this list, yes, but which involves users to interact with things that are not incorporated in the game as such, make them do things in an offline environment or something.
So if you have in the game
in
some
the
actions
example.
which so if you can make somehow the people which play the game to do something in real world.
Do you know any such examples? Sites
Nope. No, honestly, no. Now I finally understood the question,
Thank
but
you.
I really don't.
Okay, thanks.
One more in the back.
Hello, Branko. I'm George Lemnaru from e-Republic. I have one simple question from you. I know that on top 11 there isn't a lot of community interaction, and people cannot talk. Players cannot talk between them, and a lot of that community interaction is happening outside the game. So you and your friends, which is a great thing that you guys are doing. But still there's one place where you allow that community interaction, is on the forum. Do you think that the forum helps you more than creates problems? What do you think about it?
Thanks for the question, George. So yeah, so on community management side, it's when you have millions of users, I mean, we have 1 million daily active people playing the game. So it's, there's different kinds of people. Some are not that polite and so on. So we went for the decision to actually not allow too much of interaction between users, because one, I'll be free to call him an idiot, can actually ruin the experience for hundreds of people that are there to get fun. On the forum side, well, it is beneficial, because I mean, so Georgie, what you maybe missed is that we actually do have a strong community management, which is direct customer or player communication, where our community team is on email and other forms of communication with our users that have been with us for a long while and that have some meaningful feedback to provide. So we use forum for getting feedback, which we can not only measure through metrics, but we also use another community channels to channel the feedback we get from the users, and I'll be happy to talk about it with you later, one-on-one.